Sure.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Clare Brewington with Discover Brightside, the video podcast. And Tony, today we're discovering you. So tell us about yourself and tell us what you do.
Oh, God, Elizabeth. A lot of us former veterans, or a lot of us veterans, former service members, kind of struggle with that question, right? Tell us about yourself. It's something that I've learned working with veterans over the last few years is we're great at saying my team did great. We're horrible at saying I did great. We're quick to say I was the one that screwed up. We always share the praise and take the blame. But I am a former Army officer, retired lieutenant colonel. Uh, I am in a very small group, like 6-7% of Army officers that were originally enlisted and then went to the officers candidate school and became lieutenants. I did that for about 20, just a little bit over 27 years. I served my last 11 in the Pentagon, which was an amazing time of my life. Um, and really good for the family because they got to stay in one place for a long time, right? They didn't have to move every couple of years. Went into DoD contracting, like we all do, coming out of the Pentagon. Every lieutenant colonel becomes a contractor. Then my wife and I decided it was time to leave. We left Northern Virginia, moved just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, recreated our lives here. I've worked in corporate finance and I've worked in uh, with a financial institution during an acquisition. Then I said, you know what? This isn't my calling. I am misfit for the role, something a lot of veterans struggle with. And I kind of looked around and said, I've been coaching for a long time. As an NCO, as an officer, coaching peers, coaching my boss on a couple of occasions in the corporate world. So I, about 15, 16 months ago now, I went out on my own as an executive advisor, storyteller, and now I get the privilege of working with people who are accelerating their careers, adding legacy thought processes to their organizations, and showing up on podcasts like this, uh, just because it felt like the right connection with your audience to kind of let veterans know there is a huge world out here and it needs veterans badly.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service and even your ranks and working in the Pentagon. Sometimes, when you retire, you just want to sit down and do nothing. I value veterans because one, you'll have made so many sacrifices, and then you'll want to give back even during a time when you could just be doing nothing. So I really value the time that you're putting into consulting and coaching people and appearing on a podcast like mine. I am so humbled and honored to have you on my show. And
Uh, I'm
and
the one that's honored.
it's
I'm
the
the one
give
that's
back.
honored.
Yeah. We're a very small percentage of the world's population that does things. Did you know?
Mhm.
Someone had told me that there's just a small percentage of people that do things. Everybody else doesn't do anything. They just live off us. And we're the hardest working people. But to say that 23, 26, what does that mean? 23, 26 group. That sounds so much fun.
Well, I love it because you ask. And the very short version of the story is I needed a name for my company.
Okay.
When I was filing my LLC, all the things that had Caldwell and coaching or consulting, like, somehow using my name, if it was a really good idea, Elizabeth, it was already taken. And all the not so good ideas ended up sounded like marriage counseling. And I was like, that's not what I do. As a veteran, my wife who is not a veteran, but she's lived with one for over 20 years, right? She looked at me and said, "Why don't you use an old unit number? You're always talking about fifth of the 206. You're always talking about, um,
Well, we're having a little
you know,
disruption.
I'm back with you. I'm back with you."
Yes, we're having a little
Uh,
disruption because of the snowstorm going on. But yeah, there you are. There
Uh,
he's back.
so
All right,
there we
go
are.
ahead.
So I apologize. Here's the thing.
No,
My wife's just like, use one of your own unit numbers. And none of those felt right. But I have lived at a house twice in my life that the street address was 2326,
okay.
which is a really, really rare thing to get the same house number, right?
Yes, it is. It is.
And I thought it was great. I kind of thought it was like when Moses saw a burning bush in the desert kind of moment. So that's the 2326 group. It's a house I've lived at twice, a house number I've had twice, and love both homes and really had good memories. So that's why we picked it.
I love it. And I was counting I mean, doing the math on it, and it's the number 15. So we need to look up numerology and see what 15 stands for. But it's also 2026, a year. So it's like you manifested us into this year. So it's got such great meaning. So what kind of coaching do you offer? What are your services that you offer?
Well, like every coach, I do a lot of things, right? The Army taught us to be flexible and always adaptable, and I've brought that into my practice. The My ideal client, so to speak, is there's twofold. For individuals, I work a lot with people who are one level below the C suite, the directors, the vice presidents, the regional leaders. And I help them put gasoline on their career in a good way. I help them fine tune and tweak and explode out the parts of them that make them successful. For organizations, I've done some entrepreneurial work with startups, but I tend to work a lot with companies that are probably in the 100 to 400 personnel range. Kind of the company that's got a bit of structure. There's a CEO, there's some directors, there's some department heads, there's some frontline customer facing people, those kind of, there's a distance between the lower, the entry employee and the leader of the organization. And there's always a lot of work there, Elizabeth, with translating the leader's goals, the leader's values, the leader's visions down to the front lines. And it gets lost in the middle somewhere. And I work with those middle leaders to help them better align with the strategic view of the company, where things are going, all the time while they're putting out the daily fires. Because, those are the people. I always say middle management is the connective tissue of any good business. They connect the leader and the vision to the frontline people. They connect the values of the organization to the clients, and they connect all the processes that make the business run. So that's really where I work. And of course, I'm a coach. So I do facilitation work. I work with small groups, do public speaking, jump on podcasts with phenomenal people like you, Elizabeth. Um, and I do that just really to create awareness around some of the topics that leaders need to think more about.
We just finished our Empower Leaders series last month. And one of the things that we do all businesses, and veterans is one of our biggest audience groups. And we're starting this new high level roundtable discussion with veterans. Um, but one of the things that we have this channel for is because of the high suicide rate. And we
Right.
feel that veterans are so talented and so smart that we want to give them the power back. So, once you all leave the military, lots of things happen, relationships and life. And so we think that by bringing people like you on the channel, you can offer some great advice and you can help people because owning your own business in this day and age is so challenging, and sometimes people never see money or results in a business for several years. But when you think of big large pharmaceuticals and people spend millions of dollars on research and development before they even bring a product to market. So I always tell young entrepreneurs that don't be frustrated, because if these big large corporations are spending so much money on R&D, it's the same for you as a small business. It takes trial and error before you can make it. So what advice would you give to veterans who are watching this channel? What advice would you give them if they are starting their own businesses, or they've achieved good results with it as well?
I would tell every veteran that he or she has already done something more challenging and more daunting than 98% of the American public has ever thought about. You raised your right hand, you swore an oath, you went to basic training or wherever you went, and you went and served. That is one of the most challenging and daunting things that anybody can ever do, right? So don't be intimidated by the idea of doing your own thing. The other thing I would tell veterans is what you said about how challenging it is and all the R&D and all the work and the trial and error. You're not going to be perfect coming out of the gate. You're not going to be right coming out of the gate. Start messy. When I was an enlisted soldier in the Army, my first platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Tim Brooks, God bless his soul, passed away a number of years ago. But what he told me back in 1989 still resonates. It's okay to fall on your face. Because if you fall on your face, you're 6 feet closer to where you were going. So it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. My business has probably pivoted at least 3 hard pivots since I opened shop 18 months ago. I started this business knowing exactly who I was going to work with, and the market wasn't there. So I shifted it. And that market wasn't there quite enough, or I didn't have the right product for that market. So I shifted to a market that I do have a product for. And coaching, really your coach is your product, but I shifted to that group. And veterans have this just built-in resiliency. The thing we learned standing in the rain, waiting to eat at the rifle range in basic training, all those horrible and miserable moments we can think of.
I know. I've
Right.
heard about the horrible food that y'all had to eat, and I've heard the horrible
Right.
stories about the things y'all had to do. So, yes, it's true.
But all of
So
that
yeah,
got you ready for this.
yes.
Like, you can do this. And the other thing I would tell people, Elizabeth, start messy and start it as a side hustle. If you've got a product that you think you can sell, um, you know, like if you're really great at making pottery and you want to make pottery, do a little bit while you still have your current job and go test the market. Go to the arts and crafts fair and try it out. Open an Etsy store and try it. Test it to see, and then listen to what you're hearing from your customer or your potential customer. There's 1,001 ways to start a business. A great book called The $100 Startup that has a ton of ideas on how to get started for just $100 or so.
Yeah.
So, that's my advice. Get started.
Okay.
The sooner you start, the sooner you'll be there.
Yes. And one of my favorite quotes with Nina Simone is that what is freedom is fearless, so living without fear, living without fear. So just get into it and start it. One of the best things about having your own business is the freedom to do what you want, to create a business that is your own. And yes, you're going to make mistakes, and yes, you're going to have hardships, but try it. And we would love to help you. And I'm sure you can get great coaching advice. So how do people reach you? What's your website? And I would love to refer veterans to you as well. So how do people reach you, and where can they find you?
My website is real simple, the 2326group.com. My email is info at the 2326group.com. Go on LinkedIn and look for Tony Caldwell. You can connect with me there. And that's how people should find me, Elizabeth. I'm on LinkedIn a couple of times a day. So if you send me a connection notice and say, hey, I heard you on the podcast, I'll take the connection and we'll set up some time to talk, see how we can help. I think that's the biggest thing about my business. Not every coach is right for every client. So if you're thinking about a coach, no matter financial coach, business coach, whatever, always have like a 30, 45-minute conversation with them and go from there.
Wonderful. So there you have it. Get with Tony, and you can go to 2326.com and send him an email and set up that meeting with him. Yes.
2326group.com.
2326group.com. Let's say it again. 2326group.com. So get with Tony, and we highly recommend it. And Tony, it has been such a great honor. Thank you for your service, and thank you for this great coaching practice, which I know just talking to you today is going to be such a valuable experience. And I always tell my founders and my community leaders and my nonprofit organizations, don't try to do this on your own. Find an expert to help you, because having an expert coach that can give you sound advice is going to save you time making mistakes, the law errors. So get with Tony, get yourself a coach, and do it right. Because if you do it right the first time, you're going to see great results the second. So thank you for watching Discover Brightside. Please hit the subscribe button, share the video, talk about it, tell people about it, and write us a comment. Tell us what you think about the video, and tell us whether we should have Tony on our next show. Thank you so much, and thank you again for your service.